specifically, we would have disclosed the fact that they were being bought by GE for $500 million. Those are the things that we need to protect. Those are things that protect the taxpayer, which are the clients. That's what this is about. It's very simple. As far as open books and things like that, our books are published. We have open hearings. We have Cox and Comcast coming to our regular monthly meetings. There's nothing hidden under the table. The Wireless Services Authority Act is sufficient because you all did your job back in 2003. We have full audits, and we publish our monthly budgets. So you see exactly how the money is being spent. There's no surprises. So I'll stop there.
Thank you. Next. Quickly.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. I'm Claire Collins. I'm on the Board of Supervisors of the County of Bath, Virginia. This bill isn't necessary. This bill is not necessary because we have in place the legislation. The only reason I see that it's necessary is because local government is trying to be punished for some local authorities that didn't do right. Well, guess what? They need to be punished if they didn't do right, because if they didn't do what they're supposed to do under the law, then they violated the law, and there should penalties be placed on them in dollar values. I live in an area of the Commonwealth that literally, I invite you to come visit us.
I've been there.
Yes. We lack broadband availability. We even lack mobile phone
That's what I was
availability.
going to say. If you get out to
And what I heard Delegate Hugo say, he says we will have it soon. Well, I would bet, I'm a betting person, and I would bet $100 that in 20 years we will not have that capability in our community. And the reason I say that is because we have the smallest populations. Bath and Highland right now are working on a regional approach to broadband. Guess why? Because our providers can't provide what's necessary to the underserved or the unserved, or also they cannot provide to what the citizens want to be able to build businesses. And if Virginia wants to be a leader in rural economic development, broadband is the infrastructure to get us there, and if we don't get it there, you can kiss our rural areas goodbye. Thank you.
You did have a good pump storage station there, though. I like pump storage stations.
Chairman and members of the committee, my name is John Magruder. I'm with the Essex County Board of Supervisors, and for Delegate Hugo, I would say that I too don't want to compete against private. It's for my other citizens who can't get broadband right now. We need to meet their needs. I need to meet my students' needs to raise our SOL scores so that we can be part of the group of everybody else in Virginia, and our economics is so dependent on it that we need to reach those who don't have it. And I ask that you not support this bill because what we've got right now we can work with, and we can provide that if given a chance.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, my name is Matt Walker, I'm the County Administrator of Middlesex, and one of the benefits of going later in the bench here is many of the comments I had have already been taken. I'd like to parrot a couple of comments, though. I represent a rural community. We have heard that the corporations and the larger companies are going to come serve us someday. We have a portion of our county that's well served. We have a good partner with MetroCast in that respect. However, we do have a substantial portion of our county that is underserved or unserved, and this is kind of what has precipitated us to take action and try to serve those areas. You know, we welcome a partnership with some of the private sector entities that may be in favor of this bill, and we believe the bill may have noble intentions to prohibit some horrible miscarriage of policy and implementation like what may have happened in another area of the state. But we also feel that we need to be careful and try to do no harm with this so we don't inhibit successes that have been achieved around the state. It's my understanding that Appomattox County has had a great deal of success. It's my understanding 49% of their student body now has access to the internet because of their efforts. A county neighboring to Middlesex, King and Queen County, couldn't wait any longer for the private sector to come in and deploy assets. They took the initiative. They formed an authority and they deployed assets. Now, one of the most rural counties in the Commonwealth have access.
What I'd like you to address, though, I know I'm not from a rural area, and I know what it is, but how this bill gonna hurt you doing that?
We think any bill that puts additional inhibitions or inhibitors on the development of rural broadband needs to be studied very closely. And I think what concerns me and some of my colleagues is that this bill's kind of come, and it's kind of went through this process, and now it's at the stage it is. I would ask that maybe some of these rural communities and some of these broadband authorities be included in the development of the bill.
Okay, thank you, Nick.
Yep, thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman, Joe Lurch with the Virginia Association of Counties in opposition, and to cut to the chase and hopefully answer your question,
Yes.
it is starting with notwithstanding any exemption in the act in this chapter on 26 and 27. That's the concern that we have, is we've had a lot of successful broadband authorities that relied on those exemptions and working with private internet service providers. And that's what part of what the Public-Private Education Act was set up to do. Was, if you look at the act, it talks about providing rural broadband to our citizens. So we're very concerned about that. Thank you.
Yes, yes.
I got a question for you. So, thank you very much for coming. So you got all the county's largest ones. So the lady from Bath, and I appreciate her comments, and I got what she's saying, and you know, I'll see if I'll take her on a $100 bet. But here's the question. I've heard Rona and some of the largers. I understand you're trying to provide it to people who don't. But what happens when you have that overlay and eventually Comcast or Cox or Daystar comes into the community? Now, does the authority still stay in business? Is any one of them, once broadband's come to the community, said, okay, our mission's accomplished, we're done? Do they stay in, or do they stay in business and compete against Cox, Comcast, whoever it may be?
Mr. Chairman,
Because at that point, they're not providing people that are needing or missing it, like the lady from Bath, which I thought she made a good point. If they stay in business when you've got the private industry in your locality, then you're not providing new service. You're just basically another competitor.
Mr. Chairman, Delegate Hugo, you know, I think your question's a fair one, and I think then it becomes a larger discussion is what do we mean by overbuild? What is the definition? What are, you know, the speeds that we're providing by the competitors, you know, within the market, and then what local governments might do with an authority. I think that's a much deeper delve. Thank you.
All right, okay, you got 2 more minutes on this side, and then I think everybody's up here about making a decision, so we're gonna go ahead and roll.
Mr. Chairman, Michelle Downey from the Virginia Municipal League. We oppose it for all the reasons you've already heard.
Yes, sir.
Daniel Jones, Chief Information Officer, City of Portsmouth. This is my colleagues at 74, and to address your concerns about overlays being either a locality or a private provider. Free market competition only brings efficiency. If the end user was satisfied with the service they were getting, then they wouldn't be coming to the locality.
You're Portsmouth?
Yes.
Better earlier?
No, it's not a rural area, but we stand with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Yeah.
Depends on what section you're interested in.
Mr. Chairman, I was, when the witness is done, I was just going to speak to the measure very briefly.
Okay.
But we ask you to oppose.
Delegate, all right, Delegate Byron, you got the right word.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I just wanted to say a few words about this bill, and first I wanted to thank Delegate Byron for bringing this measure. And when I saw the bill originally, about a month ago or so, I actually told her and the folks that were working on this that I like the idea. I like the idea of clarifying the role of community broadband and the private sector, because I think it is a little bit vague right now, and all the questions that you've heard on both sides of the issue. It is clear that community broadband is happening, but it's also clear that it's happening in a haphazard way where perhaps the goal of meeting the unserved might be met in some areas, but the vast majority of the times it's actually not being met in the same way. It is in fact a competition with the private sector. So from the perspective of creating some ground rules and making sure that there are different lanes, I like the idea. I happen to work in this industry for over 20 years, and I've done a lot of work on both the private sector side as well as the government side, so I understand the community broadband issue and the controversies, and I really thought that we needed it. Unfortunately, number one, an unfortunate thing happened was our friends out there who didn't understand what the bill was or the dynamics of Virginia took this issue and turned it into a national headline-grabbing, blogging, internet, social media campaign, which was very, very unfortunate. I don't think that there's any room in our state or anywhere in the country for that kind of a dialogue, especially that type of personal attacks on anybody, regardless of whether you agree with the substance or not. That just should not happen. I'm sorry that you had to go through that, Delegate Byron, and I hope that that kind of conversation never happens again in this building or anywhere else. But secondly, I do think that the goal that Delegate Byron was trying to accomplish is something that we could have come around on all sides of the issue to try to narrow it down. I know the Broadband Authority has been looking into this, and in fact, that's kind of where I wish we would go back to, because that really is what we need in terms of policy. Right now, we're talking about a FOIA exemption and transparency, which is also, of course, a very important policy goal, but it really doesn't drive us to the goals that we wanted to accomplish, which is to create an understanding and a level playing field so that those that come in from the private sector know where their investments are going, and those that are trying to serve the unserved from the government and the public sector, they know where they're going as well. But instead of that, now we're having a conversation about whether this language is written to the right section, are we exempting something, are we replicating what's in the law now? So I'm personally very frustrated that the conversation went from a really good policy conversation to now just a he said, she said, local versus state, private versus public, and I just don't think that this is the right way for us to be doing policy making. So from that perspective, I'm just a little bit frustrated that we're here now. But having said that, I do want to support what you're trying to get done, because I think if this moves the ball forward, even just a little bit, knowing that the end result might be different than where we want to go, I'd like for the stakeholders on all sides to be able to use this opportunity to come together in a civil, respectful, cordial way and have a substantive conversation on the policy, because this is going to be an ongoing conversation, and we really need to address ways to focus on unserved rural areas as well as underserved suburban rings, and to also focus on what exactly is the government's role and what exactly is a way for us to incentivize private sector. And the final point, now that I'm not in the private sector, I won't be R6090 like I used to in these issues, so I'm kind of glad about that part. Thank you.
Delegate Byron, last word.
Thank you, Mr.
Last
Chairman.
quick word.
Mr. Chairman, may
there was
I make a comment here? Delegate Tyler.
Yeah.
Thank you. And thank you, Delegate Barron, for trying to help us out in rural communities. Being from a rural community myself, and serving on the Board of Supervisors, I know we don't like Richmond to be pushing stuff down our throat. But however, by staying in a rural area as well, we know that broadband is a necessity for economic development for our area. But however, over time, it has been the approach and the message from Richmond is to form a regional authority or find the money to come together with another area to address your broadband problem. Local governments have been doing this in our rural areas because we have limited money available, so we began to do that regional kind of approach. And this bill is kind of undercutting all the work these localities has been working toward all of these many years, investing millions of dollars for broadband. I applaud you for the effort, but I think if we have so many local governments having a problem with this piece of legislation, it should not be passed at this point. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Delegate Byron, now the last word.
Sure, okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Certainly, this has been a vigorous discussion, and there were a lot of things that were said up here that were simply not true, that need to be debated at another time. But I won't get into all of that now because it really doesn't even apply to the bill. And that's why it was said. Everyone is saying things up here that we all can agree on, but let's get back to what the bill really does. This bill stops nothing. It does not make the sky fall. What it does do, and I'm disappointed that most of the criticisms that you heard today weren't focused on the substitute, because the real focus on the substitute, and that struck me the most, is that those that are against the substitute are effectively acknowledging their opposition to FOIA and to government being open about how they are spending the taxpayers' dollars. Those who already claim that they're already doing this should have no problem with the substitute that is before them. Appomattox, all those different counties that talked, they're getting federal dollars. Those are not the authorities that we're referring to in here. Delegate Farrell asked a very good question about compliance. There is no one checking for compliance. Some of the things that were stated about proprietary are simply not true. The things that were talked about proprietary, this is dealing just with the tax rates. So some of those things that we were referring to about sales, you still have FOIA exemptions for, and you can go behind closed doors and discuss those economic development things. But what we're talking about is our first and best line of defense for taxpayers. And we may talk about one situation, but it's happening all over the country. So the question is, are you for government being open about how they're spending your tax dollars? You are the one that is holding the risk. When the private sector goes out of business, they go out of business and they don't take you with them. When the government goes out of business, you're going to be taking that ride with them in all your taxes that you pay and everything else that you benefit from your government. So I didn't say they're doing anything that they shouldn't be doing. I'm just saying make it open. If you're not doing anything wrong, why are you everyone standing up here, running up to the podium to say the sky is going to fall and we're no longer going to be able to deploy broadband? I don't buy that. I think that the least we can do for our taxpayers is have open government.
All right. Thank you, Delegate Byron.
Thank you.
Committee operates on a motion. Do I have a motion? Yes. All right, got a motion to report? There's a second. All right, members prepared to vote? I think Kathy wants to vote for her own bill. We got some not working?
I think I talked too long.
Okay. Yes. All right, clerk, let's call the roll. All right. On a motion to report, call the roll. All right, Delegate Klein. Well, we're calling the roll. Aye. Aye. Delegate Corey.
Aye.
Here we go. All right, clerk will close the roll. House Bill 2108, report to the substitute 11, 9, and 1 abstention. I would prepare for the full Florida Delegate Byron. And thank y'all. I mean, you know, this is a area that there's going to have to be some more work on over the year. And I agree with Delegate Tyler that rural areas are not always covered. So that's something that we are going to have to discuss as we move forward.